Hi, everyone. This week's conversations have illuminated a new way of thinking about the scientific method. For many of you, there was a sense of surprise. You thought you knew what you were going to encounter as you embarked into our third cycle. And Kyla captured the sentiment when she shared, reading about the scientific method in a new way blew my mind in such a fantastic way.
One of the themes that emerged as you were sharing your relationship to science was the contrast of this new way of looking at the scientific method compared to the linearity of the more traditional model. Kendall shared,
I was introduced to the scientific method via the linear visual model. To this day, or perhaps until this day, the linear outline of the scientific method is, or was, the process I think of when I think of science, period. I'm happy to have had other perspectives illuminate new ideas around the model, especially because it never made sense as a line. Everything in the scientific method stands for requires circles and arrows and overlaps and repeats.
these experiences limited the sense of curiosity and wonder innate in STEM. Amanda shared,
Growing up, I definitely felt like science required a predetermined method to follow and to find the correct conclusion. I really did think science was all about getting it right. The way that this diagram describes science makes everything feel like science, and it makes me feel empowered to be creative with science topics, learning and teaching them.
the sense of getting it right was a common thing amongst the groups.
Amber shared,
I often found myself naturally doing the steps out of order and then being told they were wrong. I learned that, even if I completed the steps out of order, I should change my notes to present them in order like the teacher wanted.
this need to get things right and precise takes away individual thought, serendipitous discoveries, and joy, among other things. Mary Frances shared a similar experience with science.
It was all predetermined and known by the teacher. I remember when I got the wrong data for my experiment and my professor told me the data to use, and he had just memorized it because he had been doing this experiment time and time again.
Not only does this way of engaging, if you can call it that, with science make the experience mundane and robotic, it also has the potential to become exclusionary. Clara shared,
This framework has definitely been looked at as the right way to do science and education, and with every right way of doing things comes a sea of people wanting to put down others for diverging. Julia M. wrote,
science has for too long and is thought of by far too many people as inaccessible, confusing, limited, and only for the elite and educated. I now can embrace a much more diverse and nuanced view of its process of learning and understanding that we all, especially our youngest infants and children, engage in as well as learn and make sense of our world. Science is not just for those in the white coats. It is not just done in the labs, and it is not boring or following a set of predetermined steps on a PowerPoint. Rather, it is a process of exploring, collaborating, challenging, testing, analyzing, observing, and more undertaken by infants, children, teacher, and us all as we all seek to understand our world and ourselves. As we engage in this framework of the scientific method, hopefully the widened perspective includes all members of the community and their perspectives and ways of knowing, no matter how they choose to show it. Whether they engage in a linear or nonlinear process, they're all valid. We as educators need to be aware of our own potential for gatekeeping, even if it's not intentional. Arl commented,
we need to be aware of how and whom had exclusive access to traditional doorways to science over the generations, and in that reflection remain aware that we are still greatly impacted by misinterpretations of what science is and who qualifies as a scientist, or a researcher for that matter. And those conditions, qualities of humanity, are embedded in how we navigate the roller coaster of UC Berkeley's visual flowchart of the scientific method. And underscoring all this is that this framework is democratic in practice because it doesn't create an arbitrary hierarchy or create a class system, lower, middle, upper, etc., that erodes the space needed for learning and challenging assumptions to take place. Engaging in the frameworks presented in this course is not a magic solution, but rather they hold the promise for a more inclusive space through a continual process of self-awareness, observation, and reflection. This upcoming week, we invite you to explore how this new way of looking at the scientific method can shift your perspective and how STEM can be democratic, that we are all scientists, that there are moments of entry and feedback that can give students the opportunity to engage and provide new perspectives if we are listening.
And as you go into this week's experiences, we invite you to take the time to go outside and visit a place that you've been wanting to go, but may have felt constrained by time or demands. We give you permission to take an hour to enjoy the space. This is your homework. Go play outside or whatever it is that is calling you and engage in research. Through the hands-on experience, you will have an opportunity to explore what it is about the place that calls you.
Okay, so let me get into some of the details of these experiences. So you can see that this experience is very similar as far as structure and what's required for documentation. I guess maybe what's different is that you're going to need to take a picture of where you choose to go. So please upload that photo and the notes that you took while engaging. There's a specific handout that goes along with this experience. So much like with the design thinking interview, you can choose to use that handout or you can write the questions down and take notes there, but we would like you to turn in the notes. And it's really important because it helps us understand your thinking and your experience since we can't have conversations with you in person. So then you're going to turn in the reflection. So, talk about the materials, which really is going to be simple for this one. But really what's important here is more the responses to the reflection points. And then, as always, connections to at least 2 of the weekly readings with your APA citations, set a goal based on the experience, a question for further thought. And then these are unique to the experience. How does this experience compare to your previous experiences with the scientific method, right? So comparing that linear versus this maybe more organic hands-on experience we're asking you to engage in. And then how does it connect to the flowchart, right? So compare it to that linear method and connect it to the flowchart. Okay, and as always, you can write it, you can do slides, you can do an audio or video recording. But if you choose to do the audio or video recording, we still would like your photo and the notes, however you want to turn that in. So then here's kind of the details of the experience. So here's the flowchart, right? That was just in that previous slide. Super important. If you've not yet watched this video, please take time to do that. It's really important. I know it's 50 minutes or so, but it's super engaging and it really explains. I think it's the heart of this framework and what it can look like in action. So do take time to watch that before you go. And so as you go off in your journey, take something to write with, draw with. Like I said, you can either download the questions for the scientific method. There's some prompts within it, and then bring the flowchart for the scientific method. And then you're going to need someone to talk this through with. They can come with you on the walk, or you can call them later or talk to them later. It doesn't have to be in that moment. So you're going to take a walk. Go for about 10 minutes. If you choose to go somewhere inside, go and explore it for 10 minutes. If it's outside, walk around 10 minutes and just let it really soak in. And then you're going to start engaging in those questions. And don't just kind of blow through them. Really spend 5 minutes, which can be a long time, but spend 5 minutes on those questions and really think about what it's asking you. And if you feel like you've answered it in a minute, just still kind of sit with it and see if maybe something new comes to you. And then the last prompt, develop a relationship. I'll show you that one. Spend about 15 minutes on that one. You're going to do a representation of that experience and I'll show it to you. And like I said, you're going to need to chat with someone. Doesn't have to be right then and there. You can do that later. Okay, so after you've answered each set of questions, go back to the flowchart. What aspect of the scientific method do you feel like you were engaging in? So let me show you the flowchart, or not the flowchart, the questions, okay? So here they are. Feel free to print them out, put them on an iPad, take that with you, right? Or just write the prompts down in your journal as you go, okay? And here's the talk with a colleague. What are their thoughts about the space? So if they're with you, you can have that conversation right then and there. If they didn't go with you, explain to them, where you went. Maybe they've been there, or maybe they just have some questions about where you went if they've never been there. This is the one, the 15-minute prompt here, develop a relationship to the space, write a letter to it, or a poem, or draw a picture, right? So it's just gonna be some sort of like visual representation about the relationship you've developed. Okay, now here's the last one. This is your last documentation of daily life. Exciting and sad. So in this one, just like the previous frameworks, you're just going to look for moments of where you see yourself engaging in a small act of research. Okay, so look around, you might see a child engaging in research, analyze it through this lens. You might find yourself being curious about something in your life. And so really it's just going to be this moment of like seeing yourself as a scientist. We're really challenging you to look at yourself through the mindset of you are a scientist, okay? And so that's the assignment there. Everything is the same as before, right? You're gonna do some documentation, send a video, a photo, some notes or sketches, whatever, however it is you want to document what you experienced. And you're gonna analyze it in terms of this framework. So you're gonna say like, okay, I saw these children doing this thing, and this is where I saw them engage in these different phases. So talk about the different parts of it, right? Which aspect connected to which part, and it may not be all of them, and that's okay. Just what did you notice? But then here you're going to compare the scientific method to messing about and design thinking. So if you were to look at the same experience and look at it through the lens of messing about, what's the same? What's different? If you're to look at it through the lens of design thinking, because you can often analyze the same experience in a different lens, right? So look at it through these different lenses. And that's what's going to be part of your reflection. And so same as always, you can write, you can do slides, do an audio video. So that's due Wednesday, and then peer feedback is Friday. So as always, reach out if you have questions. I'm glad that you guys do, and we're always happy to meet with you. And we're so excited to see what you turn in. I think looking at these assignments, so much fun. We get to learn so much about you and your lives and what you're thinking and how you are understanding and internalizing these frameworks. So have a wonderful week. Enjoy your hour wherever you choose to take it. I can't wait to see what you choose, and have a great week.